we're going to make you come up too. Any steering committee members, we're going to have you come up front here with us. I don't know if we have enough chairs or not, but I'll be running around. Oh, here, that's right. This last, I guess, we're calling this an open forum because this is going to be less us talking per se. Maybe we will end up talking a little bit. We'll go find you guys chairs. Take a seat there. These guys are kind of prima donnas, aren't they? No. So most of this is discussion that we would like to hear from you. So we labeled this toward a confessional CRC. Now, those who are in Canada probably recognize the connection toward a confessional CRC, because there's a movement right now toward a Canadian CRC. But that's something we're not going to talk about. But we all have talked about this before, and you've heard this through the messages that we've had the last couple of days. Our goal is not simply just to have a rule on human sexuality in the CRC. That's not what this is ultimately about. But what does it mean to be a confessional denomination, to be confessionally reformed, rooted in the Word of God, gospel-oriented? That's our desire for the Christian Reformed Church and for our own congregations as well, too. And we're seeing that message has resonated quite broadly across the denomination. In fact, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing just a growing desire to live into what it means to be a reformed church, to be reformed and to bring the gospel to our neighborhoods and to the world around us. So when Abide started, it has a very narrow focused mission on paper. And rightfully so. That was, as we heard from, was that John Calpine that had the quote about Martin Luther? This is what we're facing today, and we need to address what we're facing today. But we all know the underlying issue is much deeper than just simply a question about human sexuality. And so the question is, does Abide need to continue? And this isn't the question you have to answer. Once this sort of mission is complete, right? Usually when an organization wraps up its mission, it's done. But we all know that that's not the end of the work that's done in the CRC. And I don't even think the mission of Abide is completed yet either. So I'm not saying that. But what's next? Where do we want to go? How do we encourage the Christian Reformed Church? We're not here to set the agenda for the Christian Reformed Church, by no means. But we are members of the Christian Reformed Church. This is the church we love. And what does it mean to be a confessional denomination? What does it mean to be a confessional Christian Reformed church? So some of it is us as the steering committee listening, because these are conversations we're going to be having as a steering committee. What would any of you like to add to that before we get started with some of the questions that we get from the audience here? I just told them about 5 minutes ago they're up here, so go ahead, Jason.
Well, I don't know if I have something to add to that. I don't know if this is well, whatever. I'll just go for it. That's how we roll, right? Moving forward, the Lord's been laying something on my heart coming out of Synod, and I wanted to share it, and I think this is somewhat appropriate moving forward. So, you guys know that I've been studying Reformations for a long time because, I don't know, because I'm a dork. But, and so there's a tendency for things to go badly at some point after a Reformation has happened. And I think we know the saying, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I've kind of taken that, and when you're a soldier, everything looks like a battle, or you're always looking for a battle to fight. And even if you look at the Southern Baptist Convention, after they won and after the Reformation was over, they just have continued to fight. And I guess it's I don't think the battle's over per se, but I want to just give us a caution that we don't continue to fight, and then start fighting with each other. And the passage that the Lord's just been laying on my heart is from Galatians 5:15. If you bite and devour one another, watch out that you're not consumed by one another. And just a reminder for all of us that, that we're heading toward the similar goal here, but we don't want to sit and start biting and devouring one another in the midst of this if we have disagreements about where we're heading forward or not. And I'll give Michael Bentley credit for this. We were talking about this the other day. And on the Messy Reformation, I've been saying we're moving into the rebuilding phase of the Reformation. And he had used the analogy of, we need to be fighting like gardeners. And so that kind of fits with what Mark was talking about earlier as well. But so the fight's not over, but we're not fighting like we're raising the ground and taking everybody out, but we're fighting like people who are rebuilding and growing something good and beautiful. So.
I think I'll just add to that what you said, and Mark, your picture of weeding versus gardening, right, or watering, so it's important to get the weeds out, but then what are you building, what are you growing? So I think we're getting into that season. There's different seasons for everything. I think it's worth pointing out that whether it's human sexuality or just being a confessional church, none of this is new. CRC's always believed this. But from time to time, you have to kind of emphasize it, preserve it, protect it, fight for it. So there's a time for that. The last 3 synods have been great. Been praying for all that, but now we're on the other side of this third synod, and I do sense a shift, whatever that is. We've said, Abide probably shouldn't exist forever. At some point, we go away, right? If we accomplish the mission. But we don't want to be like George Bush on the aircraft carrier saying mission accomplished too soon, right? So there's still work to do. And then this is a great question. What's the next season? What's the next chapter? What does that look like? And for me, I get excited about, being a confessional church because like the catechism, for example, is just a summary of the gospel, right? We're excited about the gospel. So can we lean into just ministry and mission and discipleship and all that? So part of me is looking forward to just being kind of like a normal pastor and doing normal work. But I think it's good if we would have like another mission, another goal to how could we bless the church? Not that we have to set an agenda, but what are we already doing that we want to emphasize? Maybe it's the gardening part, the planting, the rebuilding. And then I think for me, one of the fun things the last couple of years has been just old friends, new friends. So some of it's reconnecting with people I didn't know too well, but a lot of you have been new friends I've just gotten to know the last couple of years. So there's a rich network and a kind of momentum building and, tapestry of relationships and extended family. So lean into that. Where will God lead? It's kind of exciting, I think. It's a new day, but...
Maybe introduce yourself.
Huh?
Nobody knows who you are.
Oh, Herb Scher from North Central Iowa. I guess just as a practical matter, I think that we're looking at a 3-year timeline on a lot of the discipline here. So I think it's going to be at least 3 years before we really know what the Christian Reformed Church is going to look like. So I would hope that we would commit to staying together as an organization for at least another 3 years. I can't tell you how wonderful the prayer times have been. I just about didn't go to work the Tuesday after Synod because I hated that so bad. After Synod, I really wanted to get on that Zoom prayer, and there was things needed to be hauled, so I hauled them. But, and I don't know what kind of a timeline you put on it, but I think one area that we have really benefited the denomination is the work of the Education Committee. And I would hope that the people there, I would hope that's one of the areas where we are bringing new, younger people alongside of the existing people. I mean, when Paul Vanderklay says that we have replaced the banner as the place, the forum for serious theological discussion in the Christian Reformed Church, I think that aspect of our mission, maybe we need to be looking at that for a long term. For some of the rest of it, I don't know. I love these conventions. I can't believe there's not like 500 people here, but there's not. But that's, I guess, just for the sake of getting the discussion started. So yeah, I'd say I would like to see us remain as we are right now, and just kind of that we're going to monitor, we're going to try and maybe focus on in our own churches, because yeah, this is a bottom-up denomination. We, no matter what Synod says, we're not going to become a confessional denomination until all the elders and all the pastors convince all the parents and all the members to be confessional. But I also think that we should be available to people that are looking for a place to go. I mean, we've got some people that are going to have to make some hard choices about, they're going to be leaving denominations that, or congregations that their families have probably been in for 3 or 4 or 5 generations. And we have to be very supportive and say, yes, we understand. We want to try and understand how critically hard this is for you to do this. But if you feel this is about your salvation, then yes, we will walk alongside you for a month or a year or 5 years, whatever it takes you to make this transition. Kind of a friend of mine that Chad knows from Washington, Bud Van Dyke, I got talking to him about things one time, and he says, you guys need to be the guardian ad litems for the people that are in congregations that they're going to have to come out of. If you're not familiar with that, when there's a divorce, there is a person appointed by the court who looks specifically and exclusively after what's best for the children. And we need to try and be that people for these people that have to come out and make these hard decisions. So,
Thanks, Herb. It's nice not having a 2-minute clock facing you, isn't it? That's great. Well, that's right. I'm going to take off a couple things that you said, just maybe to, if so many people are not aware of exactly all what's behind the scenes. First, the prayer time. I know that got mentioned one other time over the last couple of days, but every Tuesday at noon. Now, there's a little hiatus over the summer here, but there is an Abide prayer group that gets together, and it's a wonderful time of fellowship. There are several folks here that are part of that faithfully. Andy is one of the leaders of that prayer team.
Noon Eastern.
What's that?
Noon Eastern.
Noon Eastern, yes, I should say that. Noon Eastern. So that's 11 here, 10 in the mountains, 9 on the coast. So if you go to the website, that's how they can get connected to it. Okay, so if you just go to the Abide website, you can get connected to it. And the other thing, he talked about the education team. The education team is the group, and Herb Crocker, where's Herb? Herb is the chair of that education team. And they're the ones that are producing all the articles. And so they're soliciting people to write articles. They are receiving articles. So if you have anything that you would like to write about that you think would be helpful for our denomination, again, we're looking to be helpful to the denomination and to provide resources that aren't being provided there. We can submit them to Herb and his team, and they do editing, and they kind of say, yeah, this has maybe been done before. If you have even an idea, or if you'd like to write something and you have no ideas, they probably have some ideas that need a writer. And so those sorts of things are really, have been a good benefit. And you think we need younger writers? I mean, how old is Caitlin Copley? I mean, she's like 14. Man, I guess we got to get our kids going, writing articles. No, but you're right. Raising up next generations, right? Thank you. Michael.
Yeah, something that I think you swerved into that Stephen mentioned, kind of identified there, about coming out of Synod this year was the question of identity. And that's really the question of our time right now in America and Canada is where are people finding their identity. I think one of the things that we're going to need to do in the coming years is recognize that if the CRC has had an identity, a functional identity of being Dutch, of of whatever that is, right? The Christian schooling, the Wilhelmina mints, just all the things that come with that. If that's dying as a functional identity, the CRC, how does our discipleship, how does our writing, how does our confessional identity get solidified into a recognizable identity for the coming years, so that we're not just recognizing of what's passing, but we can actively point to something that this is what we're going to, this is what it looks like.
Thank you.
Maybe an idea to throw out there. As the theological sort of debate, you might say, has cooled or is cooling down, I might encourage Abide to think more about encouragement for one another. That's we had Wyma here yesterday, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. That's really one of the main commands of those letters: encourage one another. And so I don't know. I don't have a specific avenue or way that Abide would be doing that, but that's what I would guess we're also thankful for from being here for 2 days, is the encouragement of fellowship, of sound doctrine, of seeing that we're not alone. Especially I think of, so Patrick and I are out in California, and I think we're the only 2 people here from maybe the whole West Coast, I would guess. But just finding ways to bring others into this very positive, healthy thing that's growing, right? With encouragement. So that happens, I know, at those weekly prayer meetings, and it happens through the Abiding magazine. But even in the way that we pray about the Christian Reformed Church, that we would just be a rich place where people are greatly encouraged. Because I would guess that Abide has maybe a little bit more of a negative reputation, that we don't want certain things to happen in the Christian Reformed Church, but let's counteract that actively by saying, we just want to encourage one another in Christ and following the Lord. So
Convention 2025 in California, is that where you're?
I'll just jump on that a second. It's one of the things I've been saying. I think probably one of the most important things Abide has done is just simply connecting and networking, and if you want to use just a more biblical term, fellowship. And I've been trying to remind people, because it's just been really striking me. If we can we get your brain back in 2021, when every conservative felt like they were alone. And that was really on us for not, it took something massive to happen, and for us to go, oh no, we have to do something, and we need to find other people and organize and fellowship. But I think it's really important for us to make sure we don't let this kind of networking, fellowship, friendship die. We have to do better. It's part of our covenantal, not just obligations, but responsibilities to be in friendship and fellowship with one another and continue to build on that. And I'll just say, and I'm not pushing back against any of the other things that have been said, but there's been comments like, well, we need to stick with this another 3 years. No, we need to stick with this for 300 years. Like we do.
I'm saying 3,000.
Yeah, years. Well, we'll see. But either way, The work of the church never ends until Christ comes again. And so, and part of the reason why we've gotten to the place where we were is because we're like, well, I'm just going to focus on my thing, my church, and then what happens? You get isolated, and the institutions get taken over, and so we don't need to focus on 3 years. We need to focus on. I was struck. I was preaching, and I forget which psalm it is, but it talked about raising your children so that they can raise their grandchildren. And think about that. And we need to start raising our churches so that the babies that we're baptizing are going to be equipped to raise their grandchildren. And that's thinking 100, 150 years down the road.
And just to echo what Jason said too, so the motivation the last couple of years has been, we got a crisis, right? We got to kick into gear. We got to preserve the CRC. We got to, well, now the motivation might be different, but there still should be motivation, and Mark, I love what you said about encouragement. I think that's a good tone, and how could Abide serve and bless the broader denomination that way? When you were talking, the word hospitality also came to mind. And so, if you're new to Abide or whatever, someone's been hospitable to you, hopefully, and you feel encouraged, and there's new friendships, but that'll continue. Whether it's new pastors or new churches, or maybe someone saying, hey, I like where we're going, but can we make room for other people and just continue that fellowship, right, in the network, and then be intentional together in moving forward. Different motivation, maybe the crisis isn't there, but can we move forward to garden, to plant, to water, in that way to build it? So,
yeah, I think it's certainly true that Abide has sometimes had, I think, an unfair reputation for perhaps wanting to destroy some things or fight against people or kick people out. And I don't think that was ever the intention. But it will be wonderful. One of the things I think has been remarkable, we've built a network that has accomplished a lot from nothing. It was just a couple of people who said, we should probably do something. And there's been no resources. Just the last half of Abide's existence, we've had a very, very, very part-time seminary student just making sure, the website's working properly, and Curtis does a great job on that. Check an email, but it's just people who care working together. That's been it. But now we get to build. We've already built something, so we know we can do it. Let's see if we can bring more people in. And I think what has struck me, and some of the conversations around tables, there are going to be churches that are going to be in trouble, and they're going to need help. There's going to be churches that are going to need pastors. There's going to be agencies that are short leaders. And perhaps it was maybe easier for us to sit back and complain about what somebody else was doing wrong or what they weren't doing. If we're going to build something, we have to be willing to build it and to be part of it. And I think this is the moment. We have to step up and say, when that congregation down the street is struggling, how can we help? When the agencies need somebody to come and do the work, hey, I'll do that.
We've had that conversation even with others here the last couple of days, but among the steering committee, how, if you look back, maybe we have dropped the ball a little bit on jumping into those positions and being willing to serve in those places. Again, it is much easier to let other people just do it. And what happens, well, again, we're seeing the fruit of that. And so I think that is an opportunity. We will have positions, already there have been those who've had to resign from positions on boards or agencies and whatnot, but being willing to step forward and say, hey, I'm willing to serve, not just to get an ideological perspective, but as members of the Church of Christ, as those who love the gospel, those who love the Word of God, saying we need to step into this and serve on the Calvin University board. I know we have a new Calvin University board member here. Calvin Seminary board, there's another new Calvin Seminary board member here. But all across the board, there's going to be places. I think also too, I don't know about you, but my congregation, I'm just thinking more in a practical way, we had decided to hold our ministry shares, our denominational ministry shares, in escrow the last couple of years. For right or wrong, I mean, you can argue one way or another on that. But I know they're saying now the denomination has not reached the level of perfection. We never will, right? But also knowing that there's gonna be a significant loss of resources. So our deacons are saying, okay, because of the decisions that Synod has made the last couple of years, we're going to release those escrowed funds. This is not to say we don't think that there's bloat in the denomination. It's not to say we don't think that there needs to be some right sizing that happens and all those sorts of things. But I think it's something that we at least need to consider, like re-engaging. Maybe your congregation has said, hey, we're not giving ministry shares. Well, things aren't going to be perfect yet, but we do want to support and acknowledge that the Lord has brought us in good directions, and we want to step into that. We don't want to be on the side shooting the pot shots in the middle of all of this. I mean, we do need to, this is where the denomination is. I mean, of all of the sort of groups that have been identified around the human sexuality issue, Abide is where at least 70 to 75% of our delegates have voted, and these are the decisions that we've made. They fit with the mission of Abide. This is who the CRC is. So we have to engage the denomination. We have to be a part of it. This is our denomination, not Abide's. This is ours as a church. I mean, this is Christ's church, and we are his people to serve.
One way you can be engaged too is through prayer. So Chad mentioned about the prayer team, and we meet Tuesdays, 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific, and 30 minutes on Zoom. Even if you're working, you can't make that per meeting, sign up anyway, and we'll send you the prayer points for that week. And that does two things. It gets more and more people praying, and all those requests are just bottom up. They're things that bubble up, please pray. But also, if you have a prayer request personally in your church or classes or something, let us know. Put that on the list. Right? That's a form of communication, but we're also lifting all that up to God and kind of getting on the same page that way. I think we're all kind of saying, okay, what's next? Big picture with Abide. I just speak for the prayer team. We're trying to say, okay, we've been praying for Synod, and God's answered. What's the next chapter look like? Personally, I'm just getting all these, individual requests. This person, this church, this classes, please pray. So I'm praying. I imagine that's just going to happen more broadly into the whole denomination. Like, please pray for this situation. So let's, but we need to hear what those are. And then I think the more people that can be praying, whether you're just praying over the prayer points or joining us on Zoom for 30 minutes, that'll be good. So,
yeah,
Josh.
Chad basically took all my thunder about what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I was just thinking back about how far we've come. And like 2017 wasn't that long ago. That's when the whole OSJ thing came up at Synod. And look at what OSJ is doing now. I don't see them putting up articles about praying to Grandmother Moon and things like that, although I still don't trust everything yet. So I think we still need to set benchmarks for what we want to see in our agencies. We still need to reform it. We're not done yet in that. And like the banner is not where it needs to be. Calvin Seminary is not where it needs to be. So I'm just encouraging all of us to continue as Abide Steering Committee, continue to set a benchmark. What do we want these things to look like in addition to ourselves maybe stepping up into some of these positions?
Thank you, Josh. Absolutely. Kirby brought up about young, next generations and those sorts of things. Hasn't it been encouraging to see young people like interested in the church? I don't know if you've noticed that. I mean, I'm just sitting here right now. I got a text from my son, and he's like, I'm not going to name names, but he's like, doesn't blank CRC have issues? ? And I have no idea what he's talking about or who he's talking about or why he's worried about this. But I know my own kids are like, I never would have even thought about that. Like, where are churches? What are they dealing with? But I think I've seen our young people have a concern for the church. And I hope you're seeing that, and I hope we can foster that, like a deep love. Like this is their home. This is the body into which Christ saves us. And so, yeah, we've got a couple of young kids back here, which is great. Maybe just one, but thanks for bringing them, Scott. We're training them up. But that's what we need to do is kind of this work with the next generations, and having with our schools, with our universities, with our catechesis, all of these things. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we want to think about. And we're wondering how we as an Abide project can be helpful even in those areas as well, too. So, Chad Workhoven.
Yeah, the first thing that I want to say to you guys is thank you. For those of you who have put so much time and effort into this steering committee, there's other people that have been instrumental in Abide over these past few years that are so behind the scenes that aren't sending it up there right now. All of you, thank you so much. I hear that a lot from people that I interact with around here that are so grateful for what happened at Synod. And God used lots of different things to make the things that have happened over the past years occur. But clearly, without the work of Abide, none of this would have happened. So thank you very much for that. That being said, I do want to push back on two things that I heard, both from Andy and... And from Chad, both of you said the same exact thing. Abide is not here to set the agenda for the Christian Reformed Church. And my question to you is, why not? I can't think of anybody else within this denomination that I would rather have setting the agenda for the Christian Reformed Church. Now, even aside from the theological problems that we've had in our denomination over the last couple of years with human sexuality, we have another glaring problem within the denomination that's not really theological at all. We have some sort of 5 or 6 point plan that's Vision 2030 or whatever it happens to be. And I would challenge anybody in this room to name one of the 5 or 6 platforms that our denomination is working on. It's just this vapid mess of a direction right now. And none of it, or very little of it, is focused on what our denomination actually ought to be focused on, and that's building up good, solid local churches. This is the opportunity that Abide has right now to start putting that vision out there. You have all of the mechanism to do it that's been built over these last couple of years to address the human sexuality issue. You've done such a fantastic job with it. We trust you and the leadership that's in there right now to continue this discussion forward. And I see nothing but massive opportunity ahead for Abide, getting beyond now the human sexuality issue and really charting a course forward for the denomination. That doesn't mean that's going to happen for the denomination, but it puts a vision out there now that everybody else can follow behind. So I really, really encourage you guys to take that up.
We'll take your challenges any day, Chad. Thank you. Appreciate that. Seth.
I just want to give a word of encouragement to the body that over the past couple years, we put our polity into practice and we got good results. That's because our Reformed/Presbyterian polity has been paddle tested over 500 years. And whenever it is faithfully put into practice, it produces good results. So this is the thought that I like to leave us with. When we focus on Jesus, that leads to a good Christology. And a good Christology leads to a good ecclesiology, which leads to a healthy polity, which leads to healthy churches, and healthy churches focus on Jesus. If we break that circle at any point, eventually it falls apart, which we've seen over the past 30 years or so. But as soon as we put our polity back into practice, good things happen. So let's keep putting our polity into practice. Let's keep seeing the fruit of the Spirit being produced in our Christian Reformed Church. Because, well, to push back a little bit on Chad, we are not here as Abide. We are here as members of the Christian Reformed Church. So let's look at our identity as being united in Jesus, united as a denomination, and keep producing healthy churches.
Excellent. Thank you.
I would also offer that I think what the brothers are probably trying to say is not that Abide doesn't have work to do to help set a vision, and you might call that an agenda. I think what the brothers here were talking about is pushing back against the idea that is out there in some places, the accusation that Abide is a cabal, Abide is running the show, Abide is in charge of something. Abide isn't in charge of anything except for our own consciences before the Lord. And so I think there is a realization that Abide, which is nothing more than, it's you. It's you and us working together. It's Abide has set an agenda only to the extent that we have leaned into the oaths and the covenant that we have together. I mean, I've often said when we sign the form of subscription, people are upset about what Abide has done, but there's words in there that say we're going to defend the doctrine. What has Abide done? We've simply just lived into that vow and that oath. We've promoted the doctrine of the church. That's all we have done. That's pretty simple and straightforward. So I think we would want to continue to live into that, which will organically maybe more set an agenda because it is just people doing what they've been called to do. I think that Abide's vision or mission in many ways going forward will be, well, maybe let me step back a minute. My time working with Abide has essentially been for me the microcosm of what I envision a denomination to be. I'll confess that for many years, being a member of the CRC has not brought me joy. And I don't like to say that out loud. It's kind of hurtful to say it out loud. But it's true. What has brought me joy is being here. What has brought me joy is, I think, something that's been missing from the CRC, which is this broad sense of commonality and purpose. I want us all to be joyful to say, I'm a member of the CRC, and I relish that. What a gift that can and will be. Every time I come here, there's one song that runs on a repeat. And I'm waiting to ask Brother Stephen to include it in the order of worship time sometime for us. How good and pleasant is the sight when brethren make it their delight to dwell in blessed accord. That's all I can think of and feel every time I'm here. Wouldn't that be wonderful if that's all we think about when we think about the CRC? That's our vision, and that's what we'll keep putting forward. And yes, an agenda or an ethos comes with that. But that's the greatest gift that Abide has been to me, and I think that's the gift that we can try to keep blossoming and exporting.
Yeah, just if Abide is, because right now it does have a very narrow focus, even if we want to emphasize the first part of our mission statement, the second part is where the action has been, right? And it has kept us very focused and some remarkable work in a short amount of time. And I think if we are to broaden our mission to the health of congregations, for instance, I think what happened with those regional gatherings needs to happen more often. If what Eric is describing brings you joy in being here, that was pretty cool in a regional gathering to see that there were men, women, office bearers, non-office bearers from congregations and multiple people from each congregation there experiencing that kind of joy. And so I think those regional gatherings could be a place where that could grow. And secondly, I think when I was doing that dissertation, I took basically a decade off of going to any conferences. And I'd rather be here than at a pastor's conference. And if you think about that, because I have so much to learn from fellow pastors, and not just pastors, but from fellow pastors here. And so, for instance, if for how we do counsel, church polity, what we're doing with our youth, family worship, if we were to broaden our mission, I think there's lots that we could do, and we're not trying to be a shadow synod or denomination, but I think there's lots that we could do in serving the denomination that way. So.
I'm going to tag off of you because I have benefited greatly, and I know a lot of you have, from conferences like Ligonier or the Philadelphia Conference on Reformed Theology, and Coram Deo, knew Kevin DeYoung had a conference this past year. Those are all wonderful. But there's something about being here together where we all kind of are talking the same language. I mean, we're dealing with the same things because we're connected in this denomination. We have this covenant relationship with each other that we do have with other Christians, but to have something positive within the denomination, like this is a place I know I desire to come to. It didn't take a whole lot of convincing to fill up a van to drive from Michigan to Northwest Iowa, because we wanted to be together. We wanted to be a part of this. And so I'm thankful, and I know most of the time everyone here drives the other way, so we're glad to do it once. But once.
You Michigan people.
I've been here more than once. No. Yeah, Michiganders, we can't drive around the lake. It's too much. No, but it's really good. So Harry mentioned the regional gatherings. If you haven't been familiar with that, over the last year, I don't even know how it got started, but we had, I think, 5 regional gatherings, and they were just an evening. One was in Ontario. We had one in West Michigan. There was one here in Sheldon. There were 2 there was one in the state of Washington and one in Oregon. I don't know why California didn't step up. Come on. Okay, might step up. They're lower on the list for the convention next year. No, but those were just, and what was really wonderful is that being an evening, it was an opportunity for more elders and deacons and laity to be a part of it. And those weren't big groups, but it was just good to be together. And that same sort of ethos, the fellowship, just kind of a microcosm of what we have here. And how much benefit comes out of that, just this face-to-face fellowship. I mean, I don't know about any of you, but I'm kind of sick of Zoom, right? We've all, as convenient as it is and as necessary as it is, especially for us to work together. I mean, honestly, without Zoom, none of this probably would have happened either. But it is really good to be together. There is such a pleasant fellowship in being together with brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ. And yeah, so thank you all for coming, for one thing. I mean, that's just, you can't have fellowship if you don't show up, right? But you showed up, so thank you. We've got a couple more minutes here, Simon, so.
Yeah, just quickly, again, I think what was said about stepping up, that now is the time for that, right? We need to continue to do that. And that is in stepping up and being willing, well, all those denominational positions, but being willing to help out with local and regional gatherings. But to go a little bit further off of that, it's been mentioned before about this convention. Wouldn't it be cool to see this to grow to the point of what Inspire or something like that was supposed to be, right? And I've said that a couple times this week too, but I have gone to the Inspire gatherings and they were difficult to be at. But people still need to go, right? We still need to step up and go to these things. And I think that it would be so cool if we could have workshops on all the stuff we've been discussing or whatever at a level of denominationally, right? So that's something I think we can work towards.
Great. Phil.
One thing that I personally know I need to repent of from time to time is I give up on people too quick. Somebody that's never stepped foot into the church that I pastor, and I've been there 4 years. a lady that's dealing with addictions and estranged from her family and has burned a lot of bridges. She's been coming to our congregation for the last 4 weeks, and I had given up on her. And I have at least a dozen classmates, colleagues in our denominational circles that are totally on the other side of this issue where I am, and I'm afraid I'm going to give up on them too quickly. And so I would just encourage, if any of you have that tendency, you run out of ministry momentum, let's keep praying that God is not done with a lot of our colleagues yet. And it reminds me of something that Russell Moore said, I think about 10 years ago. He asked, are our churches going to be places that are going to welcome the exiles of the sexual revolution? I think as time goes on, more and more people are just going to get sick of the false gospels that the world is offering and need somewhere. And if Abide continues, I hope that we will try to equip our churches to be there for the very sexual broken that are finding a church. And are we going to have open arms and hold that tension of loving you into the truth? So I would say let's keep praying for those that we might feel like giving up on, and let's keep preparing our churches to be ready. It's easy to say we're going to stay holy and we're not going to have anybody come through our doors. That's not going to be the case in the future. So how are we going to prepare ourselves for being places of healing to those that have been through a lot of sexual brokenness in their life?
Thank you for that. That's such a good caution and reminder for all of us. So 2 years ago when we had the first Abide convention, I got assigned, we were doing the 3 marks of the church, and I was assigned to speak on and preach on discipline. And I think that's one of the things that has become evident over the last couple of synods, that when we talk about discipline, there's so much misinformation about what discipline is. And discipline is not a cleaning the house. That's not what it is. It's not just kicking people out. That may happen, and it will happen. We know it likely will, but our desire is repentance and restoration. Ourselves, repenting, restoring one another, but especially our desire would be to have no congregations need to leave this denomination, because the Lord and the Spirit has moved within those congregations to see the truth and to come back to Him. So that is something we need to continue to be, as it has to be a part of our prayer. There can be an eagerness to say, if they just leave, it'll be so much easier. And I've got one church in my classes that I have to go visit. And man, I don't want to do that visit, but we have to. This is, and not because they need to be reprimanded. We need to love them enough to tell them that they're in error and bring them back. So, Herb, you can go to, you get the last one, the last word here. Sorry, we got one. We'll do one. Okay, then we'll get that one too. Go ahead first. We'll let you go before Herb.
Yeah, just as a practical matter of being involved, the denomination has gathered. This is our chance to, as Abide people, get together with other people from around the denomination and talk and share and encourage. And I think this would be a fabulous opportunity for us as Abide to disabuse some people of some of the false notions they have about us. Also, what the denomination is what the people say it's going to be. We have the bureaucracy we have because over the past 20, 30, 40 years, we're a bipolar denomination. 51 weeks of the year, we hate church bureaucracy. And then I go to Grand Rapids and listen to us every day saying, let's have a study committee, have Zach King do this, have staff do that, have COD do that. So we got to make up our minds what it's going to be. Are we going to do the work, or are we going to hire people to do the work for us?
Thanks, sir.
And so
gather, those are those
regionals, yeah. You'll have to suffer like going to San Diego in the wintertime. Some of them you really have to suffer like going to Des Moines in the spring. Home Missions did something like this for small rural churches about 30 years ago. It was one of the best things I've ever gotten from the denomination. And there was good presenters there, but it was kind of, the presenters weren't the quality of this, but it was the aspect of this that what's really important about this is all the people that I get to talk to in between the presentations. And this is a chance to do it on a denominational basis.
Thanks, sir. I hear Des Moines is lovely in the spring. Come on. All right, last word in the back here.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about, obviously Abide was originally developed because of this issue. We have the human sexuality and everything like that. But we've talked a lot this weekend, or it's not the weekend, it's the middle of the week here. But we talked a lot about that we need to start building up. And I think we're in a position, and I say this as Abide, not just the people up there. You're just on a representative committee. We are Abide, as I believe Eric, right? Yep. Eric said. And so the example I'm going to use is from yesterday. We talked, there's a panel discussion about raising up leaders within the denomination. We talked a lot about how important it was, and that was good. There was content to it, and we talked a little bit about what does it look like, what is that structure? So rather than just talking about how important it is, what about developing subcommittees within Abide of, okay, we're going to focus on developing curriculum for raising up leaders, raising up elders and deacons. And, because they pulled a lot of books, and none of those books came from the CRC, of like, okay, use this, use this, use this. What if we develop our own curriculum? I have reached out to whatever they're called, looking for resources from Faith Alive on a couple of different objects. And so I said, well, we don't really have that. And I'm like, well, then what is the point of your materials of Faith Alive? Like, you don't have anything we need. And so developing some of those, and I think you guys would be a good catalyst for that. And I'm willing to be a part of that. I don't know if my gifts and skills are in that, but I'm willing to be a part of that. But I think you'd be a good place to start building up those curriculums. What does it look like to have a biblical view of social justice? We talk about how we don't like OSJ or race relations or whatever it might be, but how do we actually start building those things up and being more deliberate about doing rather than talking?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks.
I'm going to hijack this a second.
I'm just saying he signed up, so you can.
Well, so I'm going to. So I'm not speaking on behalf of Abide here. I'm speaking on behalf of the Messy Reformation at this point.
Your own conference.
Yeah, we did, and you wouldn't drive around the lake to it. Anyways, one of the things that Willie and I are wanting to do, and I wanted to bring this up at some point, and this was perfect for that, is I've been one of those guys as well. I've been in ministry for 17 years. I have never used anything from the denomination because I think it's bad. It's terrible. So I've made my own. And I know many other people who've done the same. And so one of the things that we've been doing and we're wanting to tell people, if you've created good material for training people in the catechisms or elders and deacons, and maybe you're okay with not making money on it, but just wanting to help the church, send it to us, and we're wanting to create kind of a clearinghouse of material that's been made by Abide-minded people. And just post it on our website for people to go and take for free. And hopefully, in the long run, the goal, I would say, my goal would be that we would have a denomination that's putting out material that we trust, but right now we don't. And Abide doesn't fully have the resources to do that. But like you said, who's Abide? Not us. You're Abide. So if you want the good material, make the material, and then give it to us, and we'll help distribute it. And so if you've already created good stuff, get it to, and I'm sure Abide will jump on the train too. So I am in charge of our media for Abide. So, But get it to us, and we'll try to do what we can to get it out there to the churches, and that's a way we can really bless the churches with the work that's being done.
That good. I mean, honestly, that is the stuff that Abide wants to do. I know one thing that it had been talked about is like, does Abide need to do a podcast? And a couple of the guys, Tyler Wagonmaker, Lloyd Hemstreet, we're talking about that. We're like, we don't know that Abide needs to do a podcast. But because we got Jason doing Messy Reformation, we've got Mark doing Reformed Podmatics, and there's others that are out there as well. But then, so they started the Three Forms podcast. I think there's some little cards around advertising that too. But I mean, those are the kind of things that we can kind of help promote and whatnot. But Abide's not doing everything under its umbrella, but there's a lot of good stuff that's happening if we can help share resources with each other, and we can encourage each other into better ministry.